I thought to start with a couple of lightning round questions. Yes or no, please, on where you think the world stands in 2029. So either yes or no, we'll dive in deeper. So my first one, in 2029, I can have a Teams meeting with an AI avatar that is indistinguishable from a real person.
No.
2029, 12-year-olds with AI will outperform today's professional programmers.
Yes.
All right. More than 25% of Western office workers have significantly different jobs than they do today.
Yes.
Most platform shifts have this iconic device, a hardware device that comes with it. For computers, it was the PC. For smartphones, it was the iPhone. Will Microsoft be the company that creates the defining hardware form factor for AI?
I hope so.
To count that as a yes. Question 5. Will the Phi series of models have become as powerful as GPT-4o?
They are today, more or less.
And will Microsoft have developed the world models that power full self-driving?
I hope so.
Which of those did you find most striking? If you can rate your own predictions?
The one about what are the future jobs? Because I think the most interesting thing that's going to happen is today's expertise may get commoditized, but tomorrow's expertise is going to be built in the next 5 years. That's what's going to be the most sort of big change that's going to happen in our labor markets, right? When you even asked about a 12-year-old being able to program. But what happens to the software engineering job, right? So one of the things I think about, even in the age of, let's call it today with, GitHub Copilot and coding agent, every one of us, even a junior software engineer, needs to start thinking like an architect with many, many agents that they're directing to drive a full project, right? So I think the level of abstraction changes. So what I'm excited to see is how we evolve our own expertise. That means our own jobs, our own workflows, when what is today considered expertise and the job content and the workflow change.
So that's on an abstract level. If you look at 2029 and you think about our jobs, what is the concrete vision that you paint behind doors to policymakers, to CEOs? What is the thing that on that level people still don't seem to really grasp, where you feel like you need to give a certain subtext?
Yeah, so I think a little bit of this, let's take the early 1980s. If somebody had said, say a Martian intelligence showed up and looked at our offices in early 1980s, we would have had a typist pool, a slide making pool, and then everybody else had desks full of paper and interoffice memos and so on. And then guess what? If they come back in 2025, they'll say, wow, the world's changed. Everybody's a typist now. Mm-hmm. That's what we do every day. Mm-hmm. And so to some degree, I think, but that's not what we do, right? We have different jobs called knowledge work, right? Knowledge work was not even a concept, so basically, I think one of the things that we should think about is what is the next generation of knowledge work that happens with AI tools. And so my recommendation to any policymaker is, how do you first and foremost diffuse this technology? This is not about the mystique of AI, the few research labs. It's about the few tech companies. I mean, it is absolutely not the case. Like, none of us prayed at the altar of Excel. We used Excel. I hope that we also get to a point where this thing is, I use AI all day to reduce my burden, improve my efficiency.
Sure.
And I skill myself on really the levels of abstraction by working and doing versus going and elsewhere.
I guess the thing that's a little bit nervous making when you make a prediction like 25% of the jobs will be massively altered in just a couple of years. I think about this sort of accelerationist discourse and the predictions that they make for the next 5 years. And those predictions are pretty intense. At the same time, you're sitting here quite comfortably, quite relaxed. how do you stay relaxed when predictions like that are becoming part of the mainstream way of thinking about
Look,
these
at
models?
least I come at this from perhaps a view of having seen tech as a tool get more ubiquitous and only help change the job market, not completely get rid of the job market. It's just required new skills. It is true that maybe what took 20 years or 30 years for even something like the PC and mobile revolution to sort of completely become ubiquitous, this may happen faster just because, after all, it builds on the rails, right? It builds on the mobile phones and the PCs we have, the cloud we have. And so therefore, it will be faster. But that said, I don't think of it as any different, right? I mean, if you think about one of the demos I showed even at my keynote today, was very cool. Like, think about our healthcare. The cost in our healthcare system, everybody can say, wow, it's the next magical drug, this, that, and the other. Except a lot of the cost is all in workflow. Discharge papers right here in Netherlands. So the
EMC in Utrecht.
Yeah,
the hospital.
and that's right. And the EMR system company, I forget this.
Chipsoft.
Chipsoft. And they were telling me about how hard it is, or how time consuming it is. So here's a cool thing: they opened up their data tier to the LLM tier, had the LLM go and create a discharge by using a prompt, and this health provider even open sourced the prompt. That type of stuff will be what I think will benefit from.
And I don't doubt that this is very handy for people that work with their hands and do these jobs that are incredibly important for all of us. But still, sometimes I walk around in, for example, the Zuidas, which is the financial district here in Amsterdam. And I see these thousands of people working. They work in banks, they work in lawyers' offices. And so sometimes I feel these are not the people that are the comparison. How does that comparison still apply for companies that are purely based around knowledge work?
Yeah, but I see even here, this is like not. I think we we understate the drudgery that exists in knowledge work.
Sure.
No doctor wants to spend half hour doing discharge papers as administrative tasks.
But those are jobs right now, real jobs.
No, they can be looking after patients, right? So
but in a lawyer's office, though.
But even in a lawyer's office. In fact, I had a fantastic incident where I met a paralegal in UK, I think, in fact, maybe 8 months ago. And she said something which stuck with me. She said, everybody comes in here worried about my job. I want you to save me from my job. She was an M&A paralegal who spent weekends going through document after document. So then she went to Copilot Studio, used it to build herself her agents that helped her with reduce the drudgery. So I'm not saying, look, some of the things that you're bringing up are not issues. Will not be issues. But let us first take advantage of all of these tools to reduce the drudgery,
of course,
that we have in our workforce. And if that happens, and there's product, like take the financial district in Amsterdam, the bank in which all these knowledge workers are using. Let's dream the dream of, the last time I checked, we still have a lot of work to do for all financial inclusion, the number of financial products that can be built that are more personalized. So if the productivity improves for all those knowledge workers, that bank, that fintech company can build more products and services. So there can be, right, even in the Western world, if we had 5%, 7%, 8% GDP growth, that's a good thing because we definitely need it.
But will the same amount of people still be needed for this?
Why not? If you have productivity, like if you are, like suddenly, it's all a question of output.
Why not? Because the companies like yours and a lot of other providers of large language models are on their way to figuring out how we can do those jobs, how they can do those jobs for
today's
us
jobs
in a couple of years.
But today's jobs. So the question is, what is the jobs to be done going forward, right? So that's, I think, the fundamental thing. I had a chance to meet with one of the fintech developers right here, and they were explaining what they're doing, which is, I'll give you an example of our own, like LinkedIn. So we said, what's the classic dev team? And the dev team would have had a product manager, a designer, a front-end engineer, and then a back-end engineer. So they said, okay, what if we created a new function called a full stack developer, which combined in some sense the product manager, the designer, and the front-end engineer. And we expanded essentially the labor pool, right? So we now have 4 times the number of people who are in the
You believe that the labor pool will get bigger on our way to AGI?
No, the labor pool that we have today will be more productive on our path to AGI. And in a world where there is AGI or, the advances of AI are available to us, we will be able to produce more because of AI, and we will have adjustments, right? The jobs that I do today will go away. I will do new jobs with AI. We will also, by the way, the other thing that I would sort of say is, let's just say, we will also start valuing new attributes of humans, right? Let's take even doctors and nurses. Both are very important. If you sort of really take a look at the expertise of medical advice is now being done just because AI is able to do that, we will probably value a lot more of what a doctor does in terms of their human touch, what a nurse does in terms of their human touch. It's just a question. Look, I mean, it's 250 years ago we decided arbitrarily that expertise is the only thing that we're going to give wages to. There are a lot of other things that you can give wages to. I think if you take work we do as the only work that needs to be done, then everything you're saying is true. But that has never been true in human history, right? It's not like our work has not changed, right? What I do today is different than what I did even 10 years ago. So you have to, you have to then exponentially think about what is the work. Let's just take, our GitHub Copilot example. I started by saying code completion's great. AI is fantastic. Then I said, okay, let me use it as a search engine, right? In the flow, helps me without getting out. Then the agent mode came in. Great. I can now go have it do multi-file edits for me, give it little tasks. Now with the coding agent, I can give it a full issue and it goes off. It'll do in its own branch. It'll do a full PR and then it'll put back. And then, by the way, I can even have another agent, which is a code review agent, review it and what have you, right? So that's kind of where we are. Now you can say, okay, what's the role of a software engineer? Guess what? A software engineer still this is where my idea of every software engineer is a software architect now. The full metacognition of the repo is still very important, even in the level 4 stage, let's call it. Because I need humans, by the way, one of the fundamental rate limiters in all of this will be all of the legal and liability laws, because I think humans are going to be pretty liable and human organizations are going to be liable for whatever is the output of AI. And that's only going to be possible if there is enough human agency to verify, to attest. And what are those things that you will be doing? Those will be the jobs of the future, which is I'm attesting stuff.
You're a rational optimist in this conversation, but I mean, sometimes I have kids. Sometimes I turn off the lights at night, and then I think about the sort of world that is ahead for them. What sort of concern sometimes gives way to your rational optimism? If we get to the core of a concern in a vulnerable moment like that.
Yeah, so I think since you brought up your kids, I think one of the things I think about is first, I think about the opportunity for a kid to be able to now have no fear in learning anything. I mean, if you think about it, right, I always think about it like I'm a visual learner. I'm actually an electrical engineer in my undergrad. And I never understood the Maxwell's equations until much later in life. Somebody showed me a JavaScript, a rendering of Maxwell's equations, and it clicked to me. And I wish I had clicked when I was doing my undergrad. So think about a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old learning physics, chemistry, the conceptual understanding, the ability to go to something like Copilot and ask it the questions, have an empathetic, personalized tutor on the other end. So I feel that
this is your rational optimism again.
Yeah, no, so then I'll come back to it. On the other side of it, there will always be the unintended consequences, right? Because if you think about this same technology will be used by someone, by a cyber criminal, to introduce some cybersecurity risk. some bioterrorism risk. So we are going to have to deal as a society with the unintended consequences with very clear eyes. But I don't want the fear to get in the way of what could be real benefits in our own daily lives.
Do you feel there's a necessity for fear in this moment, even a little bit, to make sure that people are aware?
I think we should not be just optimists or pessimists. We should just meet the reality and really make sure we deal with it with both the advantages and the benefits and the unintended consequences as real challenges that need to be met today, not tomorrow, right? So today, that's why I'm a big in favor of having some mechanism around even any frontier model that gets deployed broadly in the world. We should have multiple checks on it. One is safety checks. And another one would be a societal check on what is the social permission to use AI, right? For example, at Microsoft, I think about it as, hey, we've got to earn it by showing that the benefits far outweigh any of the unintended consequences. Otherwise, absolutely, the world should stop this. Why would they? Why would we? And so I have more confidence, I would say, in our political and social systems that if something is not working, it will not work. So therefore, my confidence is within the confines of that, how do we make sure that we all participate?
Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you so much.